So, you want to know what I think is an underrated gem and maybe one of the best affordable field watches on the market right now. Well, for most affordable field watches, you know what to expect. You know, you have your matte dials, your Thule specs, and your basic case finishing. But this piece stands out for a few reasons I didn't expect, and for a few pretty cool extras I think add a lot to the piece. Now, I expected it to be decent, maybe even really good, but I was pleasantly surprised with the overall package. Of course, I have issues with the watch as well, but we'll get onto those a bit later. Now, let's get into why this hidden gem is so underrated to me. To start off, we should go into the brand itself, and that is Clements. This is a young British microbrand based in Edinburgh that is all about nature conservation as well as tool watches, and of course, they are hands on. This means that the watches are assembled and designed in England, upholding the values of the British Watch and Clockmakers Alliance. The brand also has an emphasis on being environmentally friendly, as well as having dials inspired by the Scottish landscape. And the brand's main focus is, of course, on making high quality, long lasting watches, even having a partnership with a brand called Horologium to provide servicing and repairs. I do also want to mention that this is not a sponsored video. Yes, I was sent a watch by the brand Clements, but I do not keep the watch and I do not get paid for it. So don't worry, there is no bias, although even if I am sponsored, I would say so beforehand, and I'm never biased anyways. Starting with the case, the finishing and the wrist presence, as if you can't wear it, you shouldn't bother buying it. To start off, we have a perfect 37.5mm diameter with a 45mm lug to lug, and it's just 10mm thick, 9.25 not including the crystal, which hits that perfect vintage field spec for the modern day. What really stands out to me though is the brushing and the polishing and the chamfers and the way it all blends. Right, it is uniform, it is directional, and it is very, very sharp. The chamfered edges transition just lovely into mirror polishing, which gives it depth, but also just the quality and the sharpness of all the transitions for brushing is really, really impressive, on par with brands like Zelos. You also get drilled lugs, a subtle mid-case curve, and a signed crown with a smooth screw down action. It doesn't scream luxury, that's not what it's trying to do. It screams refinement, robustness, actual tooliness, because as a field watch, that's what you're looking for. It's not a dress piece, it's not something to show off about. You're meant to wear it and you're meant to bang it about, which I think that this does absolutely perfectly. Moving on to the dials and the hands. Here's actually where some people might not particularly be a fan. However, I have an argument towards that. Now, what I mean by this is that this particular dial might be a deal breaker for some people because, yeah, it's a bit different, it's about stand out, and for a field watch, people normally want something versatile and basic. However, my counter argument is they have a black dial, they have a white dial, they have a yellow dial, they have very basic, your normal dials. Most people would probably pick just a normal black dial for this if you're going for a full field watch spec. But I personally picked this because it's based off the dusk at the side of Loch Ness and the way that the colours interact with each other. I, as a UK based person, think that that is really cool, and I think it adds a lot of passion. Moving on to actually talking about the dial and hands though, the dial is unlike any other field watch I've seen in terms of the fact it has applied markers at 12, 3, 6 and 9, which give it a layout reminiscent of older military aviation watches, and these indices are applied very well, with no QC issues on this particular piece, and they really stand out and give good legibility, especially in the dark when they're looming. The dial colour I reviewed again was the Ridgeline Dusk, based from the hues of an evening spent loch side, but if you don't like that, the black dial would be perfect for you. The hands are also sharp, slightly faceted, polished and well proportioned, with a generous application of, I do believe, 10 layers of grade BGW9 Superluminova. Now, this is not your usual field watch layout, especially at the one that I have, the dial I've picked, but that's what I love about it. It feels intentional, unique, different, something a bit more exciting than every single other field watch, which just looks like a Dirty Dozen clone most of the time, or a Hamilton clone, which they're both lovely. I love the khaki, and the Dirty Dozen are some of my grails in terms of like a Vertex, but they're boring just because every brand does them. But this is different, but you can still look at it even if you're not super duper into watches and say that's a field watch. Especially with the more muted dial colours like of course the black or the white. Moving on to extras, if you flip the Monroe over, you're hit with one of the nicest casebacks I have seen at the price. It's clean, it's precise, and it's tastefully done, not just slapped on for show. It definitely adds rather than taking away. On top of that, we have a lovely and very presentable box that has a gorgeous, what I would assume to be either ethically sourced real leather or vegan leather pouch, although I'm leaning on the source of ethically sourced real leather, with some very nice branding on the front and some very nice bronze accents with the buttons. This actually folds out and it's meant to hold one watch and one bracelet or strap change, however it also works for two watches, and the Monroe is wrapped around a nice little leather cutout to keep it from scratching, which means the watch comes with a nice box that you can display or even travel with. On top of that, we have a 2-year warranty and the fact that for every watch bought, a native tree is planted, helping the local environment, which means at least 2 times the carbon footprint of each watch is offset. Now, of course, most of these things, laser engraved back and everything, are things that you don't normally find unless the watch is about $1,000 or more. However, here, that's added in for free. And something that isn't really about price range or anything, something that I love that shows passion and care and love for the environment. Because if you don't know, if you're new here, I used to want to be a marine biologist and ocean conservationist. So the environment, it means a lot to me, right? I think that every single human being should go on a walk at least 2 or 3 times a week. No phone, no music, just in nature. I believe that that is where we belong, and I think it's really nice for us. However, moving on from that, planting a tree for every single watch that's sold, it not only adds just a nice feeling and obviously helping the environment, but a lot of the time people argue things like watches, they're not needed, they're bad for the environment and such. This offsets that. Moving on to the strap and the wearing experience. The stock strap, which I haven't been hands-on with, but I have very reliable friends who have told me, is a custom designed woven nylon that they say is soft, flexible and comfortable out of the box. And of course it is custom signed and brushed to match the case, because this brand puts the effort in. Now the bracelet that you can see I have here is actually an extra 80 quid or so, which brings the price up from £499, so about £500, to just under 600. But I'd actually recommend it as the bracelet is incredible. It's well finished, it's comfortable, it has a quick release system, a micro adjustment system that's on the go, everything you could want or need, and it's got a 20mm lug width and a lovely taper. Whether you want it as a full and a pure field watch, which would be on NATO, where it's lighter, it's a stock strap, it's slightly cheaper, and it's more so what this type of watch is designed for, or you want it on a bracelet, which means you can dress it up slightly more, you can also wear it more daily, you can bash it around a bit more and not worry as much, take it for a swim, that sort of thing, the bracelet's for you. But I'd personally say, if you don't mind spending the extra, get both so you can interchange, because they both seem very, very well made. Now moving on to the specs, the movement, the real world use. Inside we have the good old Miyota 9039, a dateless version of the 9015 that has hacking. It is fully automatic but can be hand wound. It has 28,800 beats per hour, so 4 hertz, which is a good sweep, and it is very reliable. It is also known specifically for being very thin, and it's basically at this point taken over where the NH35 was. In every single super duper cheap automatic watch, you have an NH35 or an NH34 as your GMT. Nowadays, in any mid-tier entry-level watch, between like 400 and 700, you usually have a Miyota 9039, 9015, or the GMT variation, which is the 9075. It is the best in the price range. The Monroe also has the 9039 regulated in 3 positions to a minimum accuracy of plus or minus 12 seconds a day. However, I measured mine to be about 3 seconds out. It's thin, it's reliable, and it keeps the profile of the case sleek. As I said earlier, if you want to go swimming with it, that is because it has 150 meters of water resistance, a sapphire crown with inner AR coating, and a screw down crown. These are the kind of specs that I would hope for in something like a field watch, a daily, a diver. It's robust, you can go swimming with it, you don't have to worry about it. It's really, really nice for a daily, something you're going to wear often, out a lot. And it's something I wish every single brand hit in this price range, which they should, right? Really, they should, because Seiko, Tissot, Hamilton, you can all afford to have sapphire crystals and decent movements and everything in this price range, but you choose not to. And then when you go to micro brands, generally they're the brands that are doing this in the lower price ranges. And I do think that micro brands are starting to redefine what a good entry level watch is. Although, of course, I should also say, apart from the finishing, nothing here I have mentioned is extremely impressive and absolutely mind boggling. It's all just really, really good. However, of course, not everything is perfect, so let's move on to the caveats and the considerations. And for this particular dial, the design is different, right? Some people might find it a bit unconventional for a field piece, but this isn't important as they have more basic dials like full black or full white available. Another issue is one of all Miyota 9000 series. It's not a big one, but the rotor can be quite loud sometimes, especially if you're moving your wrist a lot. However, this is me specifically looking for issues with the watch, because I don't like my reviews always being all positive. I want to find the issues with the watch and I want to talk about it. I'm not a shiller. I don't do this stuff for that, right? I'm passionate and I love this industry. So I think it's good to be honest. And I'm being honest here, guys. I'm hard pressed to find any actual issues with the watch. Moving on to the context, the comparison. If you stack this up against the Hamilton Khaki Field Mechanical, the Laurier Falcon, the Vare, even a Seiko, even a Tissot, etc., all of the big name brands, they give you history, a strong aesthetic, but poorer finishing. Not as nice a design in my opinion here, and not as good all round specs, as well as missing a lot of that passion. Then you've got micro brands like Laurier and Vare, which do offer really cool retro pieces, but they're either at a higher price or with less extras, or not quite as good finishing in this price range. And even though I think all watches are good, as long as it's not actual garbage like your fashion brands, if you like the watch, if you're willing to pay the money for it, there you go, right? It's a good watch. You're happy. That's the point of it. However, I do still think it's good to compare, just for some context on how actually well made the watch is in comparison to its competitors and price range. So what's the verdict? Who's it for? Is it worth it? Should you get one? Well, I think that if you want a clean, refined field watch that stands out without screaming, this might be it. If you want a daily wear piece that doesn't feel generic and still offers top tier specs, it's hard to beat. And if you want to be green friendly and offset pollution as a nature lover, this is again your piece. And last but not least, if you appreciate passion, care for the industry, not just people in a factory making 100 watches a day for a profit. This is the brand you should support. At this price point, the Monroe doesn't compete. It's one of the few brands, maybe 5 or 6 micro brands, that redefine what we should expect in the price range. Anyways, I do appreciate you watching. Please do like and subscribe. It takes you 3 seconds, costs you nothing, helps me out greatly, and I put a lot of effort into these videos. On the wrist today is the Zelos Nova 2, something I did a review on quite a while back. And with that, never forget, time keeps ticking, so use the time you have wisely.